that I feel like every mom can relate to what she just said. That is just profound. That's the only, I can't say anything else. That's just so good. It makes me very emotional thinking about it. Hey guys, it's Maggie Rose. Welcome back to part 2 of Allie Beth Stuckey's book, You're Not Enough and That's Okay. Today we're going to be going over her first chapter, or myth as she calls them. If you didn't catch it, 2 weeks ago we did the introduction, so this is the second episode of this series, but it's on chapter 1. And the title of chapter 1, or myth 1 as she calls it, is You Are Enough. In preparation for this video, I did a quick search on Instagram and I searched the hashtag YouAreEnough. And little did you know, as of when I'm recording this video, there are 1.9 million posts that have the hashtag YouAreEnough. Blows my mind. I guess I never really realized that that phrase could be a bad thing until I started reading Allie's book, so I guess it kind of makes sense, but that just really puts it into perspective what we're going to be talking about today in this video. I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. At the very beginning of this chapter, she kind of recounts a personal story, which I am not going to be telling on my social media account because this is not my story to tell. She doesn't talk about it on her podcasts and she doesn't talk about it in interviews, so I feel that this is something that she wants her readers to read from her book and not hear online or hear from social media. So that is something that I want you guys to read for yourself in her book. But in place of her story, let me tell you a little story about me, how I got kind of pulled into this culture of self-love and telling myself that I was enough. And my story is not crazy or anything, but that's why I want to tell you, because I know there's someone else out there who is in the same place that I was, and I want to help you out by telling you my story to see if I can pull someone out of that trap that I was in. So this all started after I had my first baby girl, and I went through baby blues, and after that came sleepless nights, growth spurts, teething, sleep regressions, then toddler tantrums, then another baby, and then even more baby blues, which turned into postpartum depression. But don't get me wrong, I love being a mom, and I do have so many more good moments than I do bad moments. If you're hearing this right now and you're struggling with infertility, please know that I see you. And I want you to know that even though I am complaining about motherhood, I do know how blessed I am to have this opportunity to complain about it. And I pray that God blesses you and you are able to have a baby soon. So I just wanted to let that be known. But to continue on with my story, my postpartum depression kind of pushed me into a stagnant growth in my faith. I started turning to people on Instagram for my source of encouragement instead of looking to the Bible. I stopped doing my devotions and I started listening to messages that said something like, you need to put yourself first, you need to take care of you. Just read a quick 2-line devotional and you'll be all set. You don't need to take time to read the Bible right now. You have little kids, it's okay. I listened to that and I listened to everyone I found on the internet and I stopped doing my devotions. I started to fall away from my faith, not completely. I still felt like a Christian, I guess, but it was just different. And it wasn't until my younger sister sent me a link to a podcast episode from Elisa Childers, and I just kind of got hooked on this apologetics podcast from a girl that used to sing for Zoe Girl, which I was obsessed with when I was little, but that's besides the point and a whole other side story. And that started to bring me back on the right path. And on page 22, Allie Beth has a quote in here that is for her story, but it kind of fits in with mine, so let me read it to you. She says, I put my faith on the back burner to focus on myself. I feared that if I turned to God, He would make me sit in my sadness while He healed me. I just didn't have the patience for that. It hurt too much and I wanted quick relief, even if it was fleeting. I wanted quick relief. I wanted to go shopping. I just wanted to take so many breaks, and getting together with my girlfriends seemed like the band-aid on what I was feeling on the inside, but it didn't really do anything deep. Does that make sense? Like, it didn't change anything. It just kind of slapped a band-aid on the problem that was much bigger than that. And the next quote I want to read to you is on page 24, and it says, "The first step of getting out of whatever unhealthy cycle you're currently in is realizing just how not enough you are. This means letting go of the responsibility to be your own source of fulfillment, a responsibility that was never yours in the first place. Self-love is inherently unsatisfying. It depends on our feelings, which are subject to constant change based on our circumstances, our performance, and others' opinions. Self-love is unreliable, conditional, and limited. Chasing after it will always bring us to a dead end." Completely agree with that. Goes along with what I was saying before. And she also says on page 27, "The standards we set for ourselves are ever evolving, so we're never fully content with who we are or what we're doing." And this is so true, and it's something that I never really thought about before, but she says, if we are enough, we wouldn't need Jesus. But we do. If we're enough, then we don't need anybody else but ourselves. And isn't that kind of calling ourselves gods because we don't need anything else but ourselves because we're so high and mighty? Like, it's like, ugh, I don't know. It just puts it into a different perspective for me. And she also says that in exchange for the confusion and exhaustion that comes with trying to be enough, Jesus gives us peace and relief. In exchange for superficial confidence and unsatisfying self-care, Jesus offers us steadfast assurance and trust in his faithfulness. But that quote just explains why we need Jesus and how we're not enough on our own without him. Oh, okay. And so the next thing that she talks about is kind of controversial because she goes on to talk about abortion and gender identity, but she mentions in here about a hashtag shout your abortion, which it like makes me very emotional thinking about it because that is it just kind of breaks your heart. She says in here, it's been used hundreds and thousands of times on Twitter and Instagram by women opening up about their abortions. It just kind of breaks my heart, and I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to get into that because there's so much other things that I'm going to cover in this chapter that I don't want to cover that right now. But later in the chapter, she talks about something that really grabbed my attention because she talks about how this, quote, cult of self-affirmation really kind of latches on to new moms, and that is exactly what my story was. She says, "Here's what I've learned since having a baby. The cult loves to recruit new moms. Its tentacles are all over mommy media, mommy blogs, breastfeeding Instagram pages, parenting podcasts, you name it. As a mother of a newborn, you're tired, you're hormonal, you're vulnerable, and you're insecure about your postpartum body and worried about your inability to keep your baby alive, which means you're just the right audience for this message of self-affirmation." And this led me to my favorite quote in this first chapter. So it reads, "Feeling overwhelmed and maybe a bit underappreciated, we moms gravitate towards the insistence of well-meaning mom influencers who tell us that we deserve a break, praise, recognition, to take our lives back and remember that we're more than just a mother. We're told we deserve to be authentic selves by reclaiming autonomy over our lives and taking back the identity we had before we became moms. There's some truth to these assurances. We do need a break. It would be nice for our husbands to acknowledge our hard work. We do have roles in addition to being a mom, but the deceptive premise in each of them is that we're entitled to a tangible reward for simply doing our job. In that way, motherhood is subtly depicted as something that just happened to us rather than something we chose and that God graciously gave us. The cult of self-affirmation wants its members to center their world around them and their feelings, so it makes moms feel like we are victims of motherhood rather than what we are, blessed beneficiaries of it. Despite what the cult tells us, Christian moms don't need to build our lives on worldly authenticity and autonomy. Pursuing these things as an escape from responsibilities of motherhood is the pursuit of God of self, not the God of Scripture. Motherhood is the calling that God has placed on our lives now, and we fulfill that calling for His glory, not for our own recognition. I feel like every mom can relate to what she just said. That is just profound. I can't say anything else. That's just so good. And she continues saying something that is very encouraging. She says, "The lasting joy we can find in the chaos of parenthood is the knowledge that even the most mundane, trying moments of motherhood are meant to bring us closer to Christ. When we depend on Him for strength in the midst of weakness, for peace in the midst of anxiety, for help in the midst of depression, when we aim to mimic His unconditional love and self-sacrifice in all that we do for our families, We rejoice knowing that our effort and exhaustion is never wasted. It's being used for God's glory, our children's good, and for our sanctification. I just think that that is so encouraging, and it almost gives me goosebumps as I read it, just because that is the most encouraging motherhood quote that I have heard in a very long time. And on the next page, she says, the cult of self-affirmation encourages us to grab hold of our lives so we don't, quote, lose ourselves to motherhood. But when we follow Christ, we are never at risk for losing ourselves because our identity is eternally found in Him. Who we really are isn't some mystery we need to solve or path we need to follow. Our sole aim is to honor God by gratefully executing the tasks He's put before us with His help. Our identity is not in motherhood. It's not in being a wife, being a mother. It's in Christ. I need to remember that just as much as the next person needs to remember that. I love that. I love that quote. So before I leave you, I want to encourage you to fill yourself up with encouraging podcasts, uplifting books. I feel like it's kind of like minimalism. Once you get a little bit of it, you want a little bit more and then a little bit more. So minimalism, declutter one thing, you keep decluttering and it's just like a big snowball of getting rid of junk. I feel it's the same, almost the same sense whenever you start to add to your faith and to read more God-centered things, read more of the Bible, read more passages, read more encouraging things from really good faith-based people. That snowballs too, and it's just a snowball of learning and yeah, goodness. Thank you guys for watching this episode. I will be back in 2 weeks for the next one, and that one is going to be on chapter 2, which the myth is you determine your truth. Don't forget, if you found any value in this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It would really help me out. Thank you for watching. Keep smiling, keep finding the joy, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Bye. Allie, page what? Page what? Say what? Okay. For help in the, what in the world? Thank you for clicking on this video.